Snow erased everything except blood. Lord Adrian Veilheart saw the crimson trail before he saw the woman. He reined in his horse as the winter wind screamed through the mountain pass. Behind him, 6 riders waited beneath fur-lined cloaks, their weapons hidden beneath traveling coats. Ahead, an overturned carriage lay half-buried in the snow. Adrian dismounted. "Stay here." His captain frowned. "My lord, it could be a trap. Then someone has gone to considerable trouble to freeze themselves to death." Adrian followed the blood. He found her beneath a pine tree. A young woman lay curled against the roots, wearing a torn ivory wedding dress. Her lips were blue. One ankle was swollen, and a bruise darkened the side of her face. Her hands had been tied so tightly that the rope had cut into her skin. Adrian crouched beside her. He recognized the silver crest sewn into her ruined sleeve. House Ravencroft. His enemy. For 15 years, the Ravencrofts had blamed Adrian's family for a massacre that had destroyed their northern estate. Their feud had consumed villages, marriages, fortunes, and lives. And now the enemy's bride was dying at his feet. "Leave her," one soldier urged. Adrian looked back. The soldier swallowed. "She belongs to Ravencroft. So does every corpse on their battlefield." Adrian removed his heavy cloak and wrapped it around the woman. When he lifted her, her head fell against his chest. She whispered something. He lowered his face. "Please." It was barely a breath. "Don't take me back." Adrian went still. Then he carried her toward his horse. She woke 3 days later to warmth. The room smelled of cedar and burning coal. A wool blanket covered her, and someone had bandaged her ankle. She tried to rise. Pain forced her back. A gray-haired maid hurried toward her. "You're safe." The woman stared at her. "Where?" "Veilheart Castle." Her eyes widened. The maid understood immediately. "You were found in the pass by Lord Adrian." The woman gripped the blanket. "Adrian Veilheart?" "Yes." She looked toward the door as though expecting a monster to appear. Instead, the door opened quietly. Adrian entered. He was younger than she had imagined, but there was nothing gentle about his expression. His black coat was immaculate, his dark hair still damp from the snow. The woman reached beneath the pillow. Adrian noticed the movement. "You won't find a weapon there." "How do you know?" "Because I put the knife on the table." He pointed toward it. She saw it. He had deliberately left it within reach. That unsettled her more than a threat would have. "My name is Seraphina Ravencroft," she said. "I know. My husband will come for me." Adrian's jaw tightened. "Your husband?" "Lord Cassian Ravencroft." Adrian stared at her torn wedding dress. "Then explain why his men abandoned you in the snow." Seraphina looked away. "I don't know." Adrian stepped closer. "You were beaten." Silence. "Your carriage was burned." Her fingers tightened around the blanket. "And someone tied you up before leaving you to die." A tear slipped down her cheek. Adrian expected fear. Instead, she whispered, "I wasn't supposed to survive the journey." For the first time, his hatred faltered. He studied her carefully. "Who wanted you dead?" Seraphina looked directly into his eyes. "I think my own husband did." A violent gust struck the windows. Adrian said nothing. Then he noticed something hanging from Seraphina's neck, a broken silver chain. He reached toward it. She recoiled. "Don't." Adrian stopped. The chain had a tiny compartment hidden inside it, and beneath the broken clasp was a folded scrap of paper stained with blood. He opened it. Only one sentence had been written. "If she reaches Veilheart, the war will end, and the king will fall." Adrian looked at Seraphina. She looked back at him. Neither spoke. Outside, a horn sounded from the castle walls. Someone had arrived, and they were carrying the banner of House Ravencroft. The horn sounded again. Seraphina's blood turned cold. Adrian crossed the room and looked through the window. Beyond the walls, dozens of riders stood beneath the Ravencroft banner, their horses restless in the snow. "Stay here," he ordered. Seraphina rose despite the pain in her ankle. "No." Adrian turned. "You can barely walk. I've spent 3 days being carried by strangers. I won't hide behind another man." Something flickered in his eyes, but he said nothing. He handed her a dagger instead. "Then stay beside me." They descended to the courtyard together. At the gate stood Lord Evander Ravencroft, Seraphina's older brother. His face was rigid with fury. "Vale Heart," he shouted, "release my sister." Adrian stepped forward. "I found her dying in the mountains. You expect me to believe that?" "No. I expect you to look at her." Evander's gaze moved to Seraphina's bruised face and bandaged ankle. For a moment, his anger faltered. Then he noticed the silver chain around her neck. "Where did you get that?" Seraphina touched it. "My husband gave it to me." Evander went pale. "Your husband never gave you that." Adrian's attention sharpened. "What do you mean?" Evander dismounted and approached the gate. "That chain belonged to our mother. It was stolen from her room the night before Seraphina's wedding." Seraphina stared at him. Why would Cassian steal Mother's chain? Evander looked at Adrian. Because there was something hidden inside it. Adrian's hand tightened around the parchment. Something worth killing her for. Before Evander could answer, an arrow struck the gate beside his head. The riders outside scattered. A second arrow flew toward Seraphina. Adrian seized her and pulled her against him. The arrow buried itself in the stone behind her. For one breath, Seraphina felt his arm locked around her waist and his heart pounding against her shoulder. Then he released her. Inside. "I can help. Not with an assassin watching you." He turned toward the walls. "Find him." The guards rushed into the snow. Seraphina looked at Evander. "Who attacked us?" Her brother's face had gone grim. "Someone who doesn't want you alive long enough to remember what happened on your wedding night." That sentence unsettled her more than the arrow. She remembered fragments. Candles. A locked door. Cassian entering her chamber after midnight. His voice telling her to drink the wine. Then pain. Then darkness. She pressed a hand against her temple. Adrian noticed. "What is it?" "I remember something." He waited. Seraphina whispered. Cassian wasn't alone. Adrian's expression hardened. "Who was with him?" She closed her eyes. A man's voice returned from the darkness. "Come." Cold. Familiar. She opened her eyes. The king's chancellor. Silence settled over the courtyard. Adrian and Evander exchanged a look. "That is impossible," Evander said. Seraphina shook her head. "No. I remember his ring." Adrian looked toward the parchment in his hand. "If the Chancellor ordered your murder, then this message isn't warning us about a war." He unfolded it again. His voice lowered. "It is warning us that the war itself was planned." A sudden cry came from the battlements. The guards had caught the assassin. Adrian hurried toward the tower, but Seraphina followed. They found a wounded man kneeling beside the wall. Before anyone could question him, he laughed. "You're too late." Adrian seized his collar. "Too late for what?" The assassin looked directly at Seraphina. "For the truth." Then he swallowed something hidden beneath his tongue. His body went limp. Adrian searched him and found only one object, a royal seal. Seraphina stared at it. She knew that seal. She had seen it on the night of her wedding. And suddenly she understood why someone had abandoned her in the snow. She wasn't merely a bride who had been betrayed. She was the only living witness to a crime powerful enough to bring down the crown. The royal seal changed everything. Adrian locked the assassin's belongings inside the armory and ordered every gate sealed. No messenger would leave Vale Heart Castle without his permission, and no rider would enter without being searched. Seraphina stood beside the hearth, staring at the seal. "The Chancellor was at my wedding," she said. "He spoke to Cashin privately before the ceremony." Adrian watched her carefully. "What did they discuss?" "I don't know. Try to remember." She closed her eyes. "Cashin told me the marriage would secure peace between our houses. He said the king himself approved it." "And you believed him?" "I wanted to." The admission softened something in Adrian's expression. Serafina had entered the marriage believing she could end a feud that had poisoned two families for generations. Instead, she had been drugged, beaten, and abandoned. Adrian poured wine into a cup but did not drink. "You were used." Her gaze lifted. "So were you." He frowned. "Your family has hated mine for 15 years, she continued. "Perhaps the Chancellor needed us to keep hating each other." Adrian went still. The idea was dangerous because it made sense. Before he could answer, the castle bell rang. Evander entered carrying a leather ledger. "We found this hidden beneath the assassin's saddle." Adrian opened it. Inside were payments made to soldiers, spies, and nobles. Every payment carried the same royal cipher. Then Serafina saw a familiar name. Cashin Ravencroft. Her breath caught. "No." Adrian looked at her. The ledger showed that Cashin had received 3 payments from the Chancellor during the weeks before their wedding. Serafina shook her head. "He wouldn't." Evander's voice was grim. "He may have been working for them from the beginning." Adrian closed the ledger. "We need proof." "We have it," Serafina said. She pointed to the final entry. A payment dated the night she disappeared. Beside it were 4 words. "Bride removed. Witness secured." Adrian's jaw tightened. Witness. Serafina suddenly remembered. On her wedding night, before she drank the wine, she had seen someone standing behind the curtain. A young servant. A girl who had tried to warn her. Serafina whispered, "There was another woman in the room." Adrian immediately moved toward the door. "Who?" "I don't know her name." "Then we find her." They searched the servants' quarters before dawn. They found the woman hiding beneath a floorboard. She was terrified, starving, and barely conscious. Serafina recognized her. "You." The servant began to cry. "I tried to warn you." "What happened?" The girl looked toward Adrian. "They told me Lord Cashin would kill my family if I spoke." Serafina knelt beside her. "Tell me everything." The servant swallowed. "The Chancellor ordered your death because you were never supposed to marry Lord Cashin." Serafina stared at her. "Then why arrange the marriage?" "Because your bloodline gives you a claim to the northern throne." The room became silent. Adrian looked at Serafina as if he were seeing her differently. "The throne." The servant nodded. "Your father was the last legitimate heir. The king knew it. The Chancellor knew it. Your marriage was meant to erase your claim permanently." Serafina felt the ground shift beneath her. Her entire life had been built around a lie. Then the servant added the final piece. "Your father isn't dead." Serafina stopped breathing. "What?" "He was imprisoned beneath the royal fortress." Adrian's expression hardened. "How long?" "Since the night your family was betrayed." Serafina's eyes filled with tears. Her father was alive. And somewhere beyond the mountains, the Chancellor was keeping him hidden. Adrian reached for his sword. "We leave tonight." Serafina looked at him. "You're coming with me?" He met her gaze. "I found you dying in the snow." His voice softened. "I won't abandon you now." For the first time since her wedding, Serafina believed someone meant what they said. Then a messenger burst through the door. "My lord, the royal army is marching toward Veilheart." Adrian looked toward the eastern horizon. "How many?" The messenger hesitated. "Enough to destroy the castle." Adrian took Serafina's hand. "Then we don't defend the castle." He drew his sword. "We take the war to the king." They left Veilheart Castle before dawn. Adrian rode at the front with Serafina beside him, while Evander and a handful of loyal riders followed through the frozen wilderness. They had no army large enough to challenge the crown, but they carried something more dangerous than soldiers: the truth. By sunset, they reached the abandoned monastery described in the servant's testimony. Beneath its ruined chapel, they discovered a concealed passage leading toward the royal fortress. Adrian went first. When they reached the prison cells beneath the fortress, they heard a voice. Seraphina. She stopped breathing. Father. The old man behind the iron bars staggered toward her. She fell against him, sobbing. Adrian turned away, giving them privacy. But the reunion lasted only moments. Her father seized Adrian's arm. You must leave. Why? Because the Chancellor knows you're here. A bell thundered above them. Then another. The fortress had been alerted. Adrian drew his sword. Evander, get them out. Seraphina refused. No. I'm staying. Adrian looked at her. This isn't bravery anymore. I know. Her voice trembled, but she did not retreat. It's choice. He stared at her for a long moment before nodding. Then stay beside me. They fought their way through the lower fortress as soldiers poured into the corridors. Adrian struck down every man who threatened Seraphina, while Evander guided their father toward the escape tunnel. They almost reached the outer gate when Cassian appeared. Seraphina froze. Her former husband stood in black armor, his sword drawn. You should have stayed dead, he said. Adrian stepped between them. Cassian smiled. You really don't understand, Veilheart. She was never meant to live. Seraphina moved around Adrian. Why? Cassian's expression changed. For the first time, his cruelty looked like exhaustion. Because I was ordered to kill you. By the Chancellor? Yes. Then why didn't you? He lowered his sword. Because I loved you. Seraphina's eyes filled with tears. Cassian continued quietly. I couldn't kill you, so I helped them stage your disappearance. I thought the mountains would give you a chance to escape. You left me to die. I know. His voice broke. And I will regret it until my last breath. A crossbow suddenly fired from the battlement. Cassian saw it first. He shoved Seraphina aside. The bolt struck him. He collapsed. Seraphina screamed. Adrian caught her before she could reach the falling body. The Chancellor stepped onto the battlement above them. You see, he called. Every man who loves you dies. Adrian looked up. No. He handed Seraphina to Evander. Not tonight. He charged. The Chancellor fled toward the throne chamber, but Adrian pursued him through the fortress. Their swords clashed beneath the royal banners until the Chancellor stumbled. Adrian disarmed him. Then Seraphina entered. She held the royal ledger in both hands. The court is waiting, she said. The Chancellor laughed. You have no authority. Seraphina opened the ledger. Perhaps not. She raised her voice. But the names of every noble you bribed are written here. Behind her, the fortress guards lowered their weapons. Her father stepped forward. And I will testify. The Chancellor's confidence vanished. By sunrise, his conspiracy had been exposed. The king surrendered the crown rather than face a civil war, and the council recognized Seraphina's claim. Yet she surprised everyone by refusing the throne. Instead, she demanded a new council shared by the northern houses and the crown. Adrian watched her address the court. She was no longer the frightened bride he had found beneath a tree. She was a woman who had survived betrayal without becoming cruel. Months later, the war ended. The Veilhearts and Ravencrofts opened their borders. The villages received back the land stolen during the feud. And Adrian returned to the mountain pass where he had found Seraphina. She stood beside him beneath the first snowfall of winter. You saved my life, she said. He smiled. You saved mine. She looked at him. Then perhaps we are even. Adrian reached into his coat and produced a simple ring. No. He took her hand. I think I owe you the rest of mine. Seraphina laughed through sudden tears. "You're asking me? I faced armies with less fear." She slipped the ring onto her finger. "Yes." He kissed her beneath the falling snow. Far away, bells began ringing across the valley. Not for war. Not for death. For peace. And when Seraphina rested her head against Adrian's shoulder, she realized the greatest surprise of all was not that her enemy had saved her. It was that the man she once feared had become the home she had never known she needed.